Hi, I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Sophie, and we are here to help guide you to the why behind your wellness why.
Come join us on our journey. Sophie, tell us all what exciting news you have and what is happening in your life next week, because I'm so excited for you.
Oh my gosh, so much is happening, Chelsea. I am moving like 2 blocks from where I live now.
Yay! I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to come visit you.
I can't wait for you to visit. You already have a guest room.
That's so exciting. So you've been busy. I don't know how you're fitting in this podcast because every time I talk to you, you're like all over the place.
Anything for you.
Okay, let's dive right in. So the past few podcasts, we have been talking a lot about goals and our why, and we thought just to wrap up this whole segment, it would be really great to have one more roundabout, hitting one more topic on the goals and the why because it's so important. So today we're going to be talking about conflicting goals in the sense of, have you ever been in the situation where you have two health goals that you don't know if they complement each other or conflict with each other? And then also, are your goals conflicting with your lifestyle? So we're going to talk about some of that today and help you feel good and confident on your goals moving into spring and summer.
It is wild. It's March now.
Yeah, that's crazy. I feel like we just recorded our first January podcast, and now that was 2 months ago.
Right? Pretty wild. Something I did just think of, Chelsea, that I think can go with this is one's training age, possibly, or like wellness age. Like how long they've been kind of like diving into health and wellness. But I don't think that's true for all because sometimes I have conflicting goals and still do every so often, like trying to get as lean as ever, but as strong as ever, which is like a very long process and would take forever. And I am not willing to do that for the lifestyle that I live.
Let's start right there. You mentioned a lot of different things. So I think in one of our podcasts, we had talked a little bit about training age, but for those who might be new here or maybe didn't listen to that podcast, do you want to do like a quick refresher on training age / wellness age? And then I have a follow-up question on the whole like leaning / strength, but one thing at a time.
Yes. Training age is a term I heard a few years ago, and it kind of made me think like, that's kind of funny, but it's true and accurate. And something I ask like all new clients, potential new clients is like, like what's your training age? Like, what have you done before? And it's nothing really more to that. It's not like, oh, so you're in your toddler phase of training or anything. It's just like, how many years have you been working out or kind of diving into diet with Chelsea? And like, what have you done? Like, just, classes, weights on your own, things like that.
And why did you bring it up in this podcast? So I know you had mentioned like it might have an impact and it might not. So do you want to give in it? Because I agree with you. Do you want to give an example of how it might impact conflicting goals?
Yes. I don't want to sound mean or anything, but I think it can be due to like knowledge and education on the subject matter. Yeah, and just not and like all the information out there, but a lot like even me coming from a running background, me still running like 25, 30 miles a week for a little bit after college and trying to get like as strong as I could be at the same time was like a little conflicting there. But like, not that it can't happen. Again, it just takes a lot longer. And you need to recover extra, and there's just so many things that go into it. So it's not impossible, but it just makes things difficult.
I agree with what you're saying with like, and maybe this isn't what you're saying, so correct me if I understood incorrectly, but I feel because even me, like in my wellness journey in the beginning, and I see it all the time. So again, we're not trying to call anybody out or make a blanket statement, but when you're starting out on a wellness journey, whether it be with nutrition or exercise, a lot of times I see people wanting to do everything. Like they think that they need to be doing everything at once. And so a lot of those things can be conflicting with each other. And just like Sophie said, it doesn't mean that you can't have multiple goals or that you can't do multiple things at once. It just kind of goes back to what is your main goal and like what is your lifestyle. And we'll get into some examples of that. But I agree. I think in someone's wellness journey or training age or wellness age or whatever we want to call it, sometimes in the beginning, people might come with a lot of conflicting goals just because they don't know or haven't talked to a professional or need that help. Just like we had talked about in our last podcast with like your why is sometimes you need guidance. Not I never tell my clients why they should be doing something in terms of like why they need to be reaching the goal they set for themselves, but I can help them discover that because sometimes it's hard to figure it out on your own.
Yes, and I actually love that because I do think you and I can help clients kind of figure out their why and their goal, because a lot of people that do have a young training age don't always know what they want to do in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, yeah, I don't know what I want to do, just like get stronger. And I'm like, great. That's my favorite. That's awesome. Let's do it. Because usually along the way, they'll be like, oh, yeah, no, I want to do push-ups. I want to do pull-ups. And it will change and develop, which is great.
Yeah. And the last thing that I'll say with that too is I think this is a myth that we can debunk right here is so many people feel like before working with a professional, whether it be a dietitian or a trainer, that they need to have it figured out. And I promise you, you do not. So with clients that I work with, like if they're coming to me with no nutrition knowledge at all, that's okay. That's what I'm here for. Now, of course, I have people who have done other things, maybe have even worked with other dietitians or things like that. And that's totally fine too. But I think, especially for those who might be new in their journey or have never worked with a trainer or have never worked with a dietitian, you feel like you need to come in with some knowledge. And if you do, fine. And if you don't, we accept you for where you're at. And that's what we're here to help you with.
It's easier for us to help you create habits than break bad habits.
Mm-hmm.
Like movement patterns wise, at least.
No, nutrition is the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Unfortunately, nutrition's a little bit more tough because a lot of our nutrition habits have stemmed from even childhood. I'm not going to get into the psychology of all that today, but so a lot of times nutrition is a little bit harder with that. But obviously, if someone has like tried a new fad diet and got in a habit of doing something like cough cough no carbs type of thing and then we're trying to reverse that, I see that pretty frequently. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast topic.
oh yeah, I can't wait for that one. Chelsea, have you ever had a conflicting goal?
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit offline and I 100% have. I'm trying to think through one from like a health perspective because I feel like my goals over the past years have changed so much and my why has changed, which we've talked through. So let me sit on it. I'll answer it in this podcast. I just need to think it through a little bit more.
Perfect.
But you were saying, while I am thinking about it, the second thing I wanted to follow up on that you had mentioned in the beginning is the whole like lean versus strong. And then you also mentioned running while trying to get stronger. Do you want to start there with those examples of like how they might be conflicting and like in your personal journey, what went through your head and what you thought through with those types of things?
Yes. So we kind of spoke about this a little bit in the last podcast of me and social norms and lean and six pack and whatever, that conflicting thought, which luckily that has left the bus station. It's just, I mean, Chelsea, I'm sure you work with people all the time that are trying to lose weight, get lean. It's just it's a job. Like, that's like being bodybuilder-esque, because it's not that I'm not lean. I would like to get more lean back in the day, and I just feel like it's really hard. Am I crazy?
What, getting lean?
Yeah, like
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
it's so hard
But
to explain.
yeah, I think it's hard to explain because we're using these terms that don't have a standard definition. So, like, someone might be listening to Sophie talk and her saying about lean, and like, you might be like, Sophie, but you are lean. It's hard a little bit because everybody's definition, like, even with weight loss and with getting
Yeah,
strong, like, what's the different? I mean, like, for somebody getting strong might be doing one pull up. I mean, that might be
totally.
their definition of getting strong. And for someone else, it might be doing some type of competition. I mean, so I think that's what's a little bit hard about this discussion is even within these goals, like, those goals could look different for every
I'm
single
gonna,
person.
yeah, I'm gonna try and word it differently. And this is all relative, right? And by trying to get lean, I wanted more muscle mass and to either keep my same body fat percentage or lower it and get strong at the same time, which is tough because with getting that lean and defined, you need to play with like your macros so much with the protein and the carbs and obviously fats, but everything. And while trying to get strong, you need a lot of energy and you need more calories, right, Chelsea?
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't willing to make those life sacrifices for that. And then the running with the 1RM, which there's controversy with that, but running and lifting back to back can be tough because you can see damages to the lifting. But luckily, my love for running took a back seat. And, and it's not that you can't be strong, right? I still was the strongest ever in the gym with weights than I was in college, but I was also a more serious lifter post college. And it's not that I became such a slow runner, but obviously I wasn't as quick of a runner as I was in college, but that's because I wasn't training as seriously.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I do want to put a disclaimer on this. Kind of, I already did with the whole like terminology thing, but I do think some of these things, now that we're talking through it, aren't conflicting depending to the degree that you want it. So, for example, like losing, and you can totally disagree with me on this, Sophie, but like losing fat and getting stronger. For someone who's brand new to the gym, they might lose fat and get stronger from where they're starting. But like for you and your journey to get lean and get strong kind of conflicted because you needed to take that next step, which might have been more with your nutrition that then maybe didn't meet your lifestyle. So kind of like you were saying, it is all relative because I do think with some of these goals, you can do both at the same time, but it depends on the length and like the what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Your training age, because the newer you are into fitness, at least, the easier it is to see change.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
quicker you're going to get stronger, the more you're going to lose weight easier, XYZ, because your body isn't used to anything. And then we are adapting human beings, and that's why we have to do progressive overload to keep our body adapting to continue to achieve the goals we'd like.
Yeah, great way to put it. Yeah. So with these physical things that we're talking about, it's not that we're saying that you can't do them. It just depends on to what extent you want to go and where you do want to progress to,
Yes.
type of thing, if that makes sense. I did think of an example because I'm going to switch it a little bit. So I'm going to pull in an example that doesn't have to do with like body or strength or physical things, because I think sometimes people's goals aren't related to that. If they are, great. If they're not, totally fine too. So let's put an example, a conflicting example. And I thought of this because of me personally, but also I see it a lot of times too, with a conflicting goal with your lifestyle. So I'll give a real life example. Wanting to cook more or start to eat healthy. So I'll pull kind of like different examples into it. So like maybe the goal is you're wanting to eat more nutrient dense foods, and you're wanting to do that by starting to like meal plan and meal prep and start to learn more about that. But let's say you're a consultant and you're traveling Monday through Thursday and living in a hotel room, or a flight attendant, or something like that. So the example I was thinking for myself personally is, you guys have all heard me talk about like my moving story. So like when we moved, one of my goals when we moved was to just like get back into my routine, get back into the routine of working out, getting back into the routine of cooking. But then we got to our house and like we didn't have some of our appliances. And then we ended up having some construction in our house where like our kitchen wasn't really accessible. So now this goal that I set of, okay, getting back into cooking conflicted with my lifestyle because I didn't have a kitchen available. So I think that's a conflicting example of, does it fit with your lifestyle? And that kind of goes back to like, that can change because your lifestyle can change with time too. And that can change short term, that can change long term. But yeah.
No, I love that. And I think that's a great example and probably more common than we think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know the other example that we talked about from a lifestyle standpoint was like social life. You probably see this in the gym, and I saw this when I worked in the gym. A lot of people who were wanting to get stronger and were wanting to take it to the next level in the gym, no matter what that looked like for them. But then they were still very much in a party lifestyle where they were not getting a lot of sleep, drinking a lot, going out all of the time. What are your thoughts on that with goals of like getting stronger or losing weight?
I think it definitely has an effect, because with that kind of lifestyle, you are, I mean, affecting everything, your sleep, your life, like work. You're just going to be so fatigued and your muscles are going to be under recovered. So like say you have a really hard lift, you are hungover, you probably aren't going to lift one as heavy as you could if you weren't hungover. Two, your recovery for the next day isn't going to be that great either. So it's kind of just like little setbacks and something that's like holding you back. So I think that's going to be tough. And if you're like, well, I'd like to achieve this goal sooner than later, then you're going to have to really reflect and think of, well, I might have to lessen this partying, etc. lifestyle.
So that gets into the point that Sophie and I talked about a little bit offline of, what are you willing to do to get to your goal? So if it does conflict, whether it be conflicting goals with each other or conflicting goals with your lifestyle, it's asking yourself the question, what are you willing to do to get to that goal? And can you do it? So like with a party lifestyle, that's a great example. Like you can change that lifestyle. If your goal of XYZ is so important to you, I guarantee that you can change your lifestyle. Some things you can't change are the example that I gave of like my kitchen being under construction. Like that might be out of your control? So it's also asking yourself, it's kind of a two-part question, right? Number one, what are you willing to get to your goal? And number two, is that in your control or out of your control?
I love that.
Okay, so I want to talk through one last thing from my end of a conflicting goal that might be the most controversial one we'll talk about, but also so important because I see it all the time. So many people in the health area, obviously, if we're talking about wellness, might want to lose weight, but also so many people struggle with body image. And honestly, this is like my niche. This is who I work with, is individuals who like have yo-yoed their whole life. They're tired of that. They don't want to do anything extreme. They just want to make nutrition a part of their lifestyle. They want to improve that body image. They want to be more confident in themselves, but they also might have a weight loss goal. So the question becomes, A, can you do both? And B, how do you do that? Because I'm like visualizing kind of a diagram. So you have weight loss and you have body image at the top. And those are kind of conflicting each other, right? Like if you're wanting to lose weight, but you're also wanting to focus on body image, how do you do both? And then underneath that is, okay, if you're wanting to improve your body image, that's also, I'm guessing you probably want to improve your relationship with food in terms of like feeling more confident in what you eat, not feeling guilty for what you eat, not calling a food good or bad. But then you might hear of, okay, well, to lose weight, I need to track my food or be in a calorie deficit or look at my macros. And it's kind of like, how do you do both? And can you do both? So I have an opinion on that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Sophie.
I mean, I have a feeling we probably have the same opinion on it or something similar because not that I ever had a poor relationship with food, but I've had a poor relationship with body image.
Mm-hmm.
And the tough part is like, sure, if I just snapped my fingers and then had the body of my dreams in my head, there would still be something that was quote unquote wrong with my body. It's such a mental game. It's so hard, like you need to get there like on a journey mentally and physically together. You need to love yourself through the process
Mm-hmm.
because you want to make sure you love your, I guess I'm making quotation marks in the air, like end goal. But if you don't get there together mentally and physically, you're not gonna get there.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the first things that, so if I have someone, I guess I should go backwards a little bit. If I have someone come to me that falls into this category, I always like to be transparent from the start. I actually had this conversation with a new client last week. It's someone I'd never worked with before, and they struggled with very much of what I'm explaining. A lot of individuals do. And we talked about right from the get-go of we're probably going to work together for a while because prior to even talking about what you eat, we have to talk about your mindset and we have to talk through, getting into some of the psychology of it, of like, where did this stem from? Where did this body image challenge stem from? And where did this goal of weight loss stem from? So again, it kind of goes back to our last podcast of figuring out your why and talking through like, do these goals conflict with each other? Is one more important than the other? And how do we get to XYZ? And every single person is a little bit different. So I agree, like you definitely have to, it's a journey, it's a process. With that being said, I do, because I think some of this conversation might seem negative in terms of like, oh, I can't do multiple things at once. And we're not telling you that. It's just more of a journey. And so many people want quick, fast results. So like when I have individuals saying, I want to lose weight, but I want to improve my body image, I'm going to sound very controversial because I know there's not a lot of people out there that probably think this, but like I think you can, and I know you can because I've worked with so many women to do that, but it's a journey. And unfortunately, I think like in the health world, I think we have a very black and white side of things. We have so many health professionals that are like so numbers focused. To lose weight, you have to track your macronutrients and track your calories and do this and do that. And like, yes, that might work for some people, but then you have like the other side of it who's very much more into like intuitive eating and like body positivity and all that type of stuff. And I feel like I'm right smack in the middle because I think both are important. I think the science and the data is important. And I think your body image and your mindset and relationship with food is important. So it's meshing those things together. But with that being said, it's a journey to get there. It's not going to happen overnight. So a lot of times it's also accepting, yes, I do want to lose weight and I do want to physically feel more comfortable in my own skin, but like it might take longer to get there because we're also working on this other goal and it's not going to be overnight that it happens versus like a 30-day challenge that you might lose all of this weight, but then I guarantee you gain it back. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like what you said. I think the takeaway and moral of the story here is that you're allowed to have conflicting goals. Obviously, no one can stop you from anything. Be your own person. But it's going to take you a lot longer to get there, possibly, which is okay. It just depends. Like, none of us can Amazon our goals. So it's going to take time, but it just depends what time you want to put in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It all comes back to, like we had said, what are you willing to get to your goal? What can you do with your lifestyle? And if your goals do conflict, do you want to separate them out and work on one at a time? Because that's okay. Or do you want to mesh them together? And some you might not be able to mesh together. And that's where like a health professional can talk you through that. Because there are some, like, we didn't really get into this one. And I feel like this could be a whole other podcast. But like, if someone was pregnant and they came to me wanting to lose weight, like, obviously, from a safety standpoint, like, that is a conflicting goal that is not even safe to do. So, all goals cannot be conflicting or should not be conflicting, but there are some that's in the gray area. They might be able to work together, but they might not. So that's where we're here, or other health professionals are here to walk you through that. And every person's different. So for one person, the two goals might be conflicting because of their lifestyle, and for someone else, they might coincide together. So,
yes, I love it.
Food for thought for today is write down the questions that we had mentioned. So we said, okay, well, first, obviously, you have to start with your goals. So by now, hopefully, you've thought through your goals, you've thought through your why. So now, if you have multiple goals, the first question is, are they conflicting with each other? And if you're having a hard time figuring that out, reach out to us. That's question number one. Question number two is, do those goals conflict with your lifestyle? So whether you have one goal or two goals, do they conflict with your lifestyle? And the third one is, if they do, is that lifestyle change in your control or out of your control? So lots of questions, lots of deep reflection from this one. And we're here if you need help to be guided through it.
Yes, really good questions. Maybe if you haven't had conflicting goals, maybe a friend or parent has, but it's just something to reflect on and think about. And thank you for listening in.